everyone, my name is Kudzie Mapiye, and on this channel I do videos about my life living here in Australia, and I also share different life lessons that I've learned along the way. In today's video I'm going to be talking about family relationships, particularly family relationships for migrants with their families that they left back home. And I want to just share my experience because for me it was a rude awakening, an unexpected, unpleasant experience. And I just wanted to, do this video just to share my experience and also to warn anyone or just to, hopefully provide information on some things that you need to be mindful of when you are moving overseas. And most people, when they move from their home country, most people are motivated by like financial gain, and they don't really look at the big picture of what that means for the other aspects of their life, such as their family relationships. And I certainly didn't think about that when I moved to Australia. When I moved to Australia, I was very young, and I was out of high school. I was just thinking about moving to greener pastures. Didn't think about the people who were important to me. And I think for me, when I first realized that, hey, I think I made a big oversight and I didn't consider something that was important, was when I first went back to Zimbabwe. My first trip back to Zimbabwe after being in Australia was after about 4 years. And I was so excited to go back home. You're thinking you're going to reconnect with your family, you're going to reconnect with your friends, because to be honest, no matter how good Australia is, there's always that sense of this is not home and I don't fully belong here. That is a sense that I've had ever since I've been here, and that's been just over 16 years. I still have that feeling of this is not my home. Like, this is my second home, but this is not the home that I call home as the first love. So yeah, when I first went back to Zimbabwe, when I first visited Zimbabwe, I found that people that I used to be close with, like, they were not as close to me anymore. And I've got a really good analogy to describe how I felt. I felt like someone who'd been in a relationship and you want to go back to your partner and you realize that they've moved on. That was the best way to describe what I experienced. I remember people being very excited to see me, being very happy to see me, just like I was to see them, but that was very short-lived. Like, people are like, hi, like, haven't seen you for years. And then I remember being at this family function, and I had a lot of my relatives there, and I remember just after the big welcomes, the kisses and the hugs and everything, I remember just sitting back. And I am naturally a very reflective person, so I usually sit back and watch a lot of situations before I jump in. So I remember sitting at this family function and I was just watching people just move on with their lives like I wasn't there. And it was such a painful experience for me, because I realized at that moment that people have just moved on with life without me, and they have gotten used to living without me, that even when I'm there, it's hard for them to incorporate me into their day-to-day. And that was something that I was hoping for so much when I visited home. I was hoping that people would just incorporate me into their day-to-day. People will be keeping me updated with what's been going on, will be catching up, but that wasn't the case. People were just carrying on with their lives. And I realized that so much has happened within the family. There have been weddings, there have been deaths, there have been celebrations, and people have gotten together, and I have not been there. And people have bonded over different experiences, and I have not been there. And even if you have a phone call with someone and you ask, hi, how are you? How are things going there? How's the weather? How's work? Like, it's not deep enough a conversation to be updated with what's happening in people's lives. And it's the things that happen in people's lives that keep them closer. So I could feel and I could see that my family, like, my wider family, like my extended family and everything, they were still so close knit and they were still so close to each other. But I just felt like I was an outsider looking in. I felt like I struggled to fit in. I still feel that feeling, like whenever I go back home, that I do struggle to kind of fit in and be incorporated into people's day-to-day, because they just kind of carry on. And it's not to blame them, because life has been going on. It's been 16 whole years, more than 16 years. Like, so much has happened that it just kind of feels like you haven't been involved. And when I first moved to Australia, I wasn't thinking about long-term impact when it comes to family relationships. I wasn't thinking about like, I'm gonna lose relationships, or what do I need to do to maintain relationships. And that is something that I am actively focusing on now. Like, I ask myself, what can I actively do to maintain the relationships that are important to me? Because there's some family members that are very important to me and I don't want to lose that relationship with them. And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. It's more than just being in the same WhatsApp group and saying hi and things like that. It takes people actually reaching out and being genuine and really wanting to know and be involved in someone's life, even though you have distance between you in terms of like physical distance. You really need to make an effort. You really need to make time and space in your life and in your schedule to reach out and catch up with those family members that are important. It might not be practical like to catch up with everybody, but it's really important to maintain the relationships with people close to you. And when I was thinking back, I realized that when I was growing up, I was really close to my cousins. And what made us really close, like, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have WhatsApp, we didn't even have mobile phones half the time. But what made us really close was that we used to meet at a lot of family functions. Like, we'd spend Christmas together, we'd meet like at weddings, we'd meet at funerals, we'd meet at parties, we'd meet at graduations, like would meet at so many different gatherings that there were so many opportunities for us to catch up and have a really deep conversation and know what's happening in someone's life. And the other thing that media does, social media does, is it just allows for surface level relationship. It's really, really hard to really like connect with someone on a deeper level if you're just using social media. Sometimes people open up to you differently when you're right in front of them, or they open up to you differently when you actually give them a call and you have a long conversation, not just like a 10-minute check-in conversation, like a long, deep conversation, and you're really concerned about their life and you really want them to be involved in what's happening to you. Like, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort. And I'm sure a lot of people living overseas have experienced that scenario where they go back home and like people give them the hugs and the kisses and the welcome, and then after a while you're just observing their life. You're just observing how left out you are. You're just observing how much they've moved on. You're just observing how you're not a part of their lives anymore. And I think for me, like, if I had really considered that, like if I had considered family relationships, I would have really, really done things differently in terms of like how I catch up with people. I remember when I came to Australia, like I wasn't on Facebook or anything. There was Facebook, but I was not on it back then. But I didn't even have the phone numbers of everyone that was important to me. I remember I had to reach out to other people to give me like people's phone numbers after I was actually here. And sometimes like people act like you're annoying them, like people are busy, you're like asking, can I have this person's number, can I have this person's number? Because it was an oversight for me. I didn't think to get people's numbers, get people's contacts, because I'm gonna be far away and I don't know when I'm coming back, like so that I can maintain that communication. I didn't have a plan even of how am I going to be maintaining this communication, how often am I going to be calling these people, am I setting aside a budget, because international calls are expensive. Am I setting aside a budget for international calls to have long meaningful relationships with the people that I care about. I didn't think about any of that. All I thought about is, I'm going to Australia. I was just so hyper focused on what Australia had to offer me that I didn't think about what I had to maintain and what was important to me. I was just focused on what I was going to gain and not what I had to give or what I had to be so that I can have those meaningful relationships. And I think in life, after all has been said and done, after you've made all the money that can be made and you've experienced all the things that you can experience, like, you know, you realize that relationships are really the bedrock of everything in life. Like, your relationships, your family relationships, your friendships are really the things that make life more meaningful. And I'm glad now that I'm now making a more conscious decision to have more meaningful engagements with the people that I care about. And I wish I had done that sooner. And I just want to encourage everyone who might be currently living overseas, or you're planning to live overseas, or you're just really like recently relocated, please do not neglect that important element of your life, because it's not going to be enough like just being in the WhatsApp group. Let me tell you that it's not going to be enough. Like, people might put like little updates in there, but when you really get there and you see them face to face, the connection is going to be different if you haven't been making meaningful, like, you know, efforts to reach out and have meaningful conversations and really checking in on each other. Like, how are you doing? Like, how are you really doing? And, you know, keeping each other updated. It's just like a romantic relationship. I think sometimes we think about our family relationships different from how we think about our romantic relationships. If you are like in a romantic relationship with someone and it was a long distance relationship and you guys didn't call each other, you just said, hi, how are you? How's the weather? The weather's good. Like, you know, you're not really checking in, like, you know, how are you feeling about things? What progress are you making in your life? What are your challenges? Like, how can I be there for you? If you're not really engaging with someone in a meaningful way, that relationship was just gonna fizzle out. Like, you're probably gonna end up like broken up or whatever, because you haven't been connecting. It's the same with family relationships. You need to put in the same amount of effort. The same amount of effort is needed, the same amount as you put in a romantic relationship, if you want to have a meaningful relationship with the people that you care about. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you so that your life can be enriched. You will have all the things that you went overseas for, but you will also keep and maintain the things that were important to you, and you're not throwing away everything. You're not just throwing away your whole life and you're like wanting to run away to another country or start, you know, life in a new country. Because the truth is, like, you will fit in, you will, like, you know, build networks, relationships in the country you move to, but you will never, like, the sense of belonging is very different to what you had before you left your home country. And you can end up being in a situation where you feel like you don't belong anywhere. You don't fully belong in the country you relocated to, and you don't fully belong in the country that you came from. And you're just kind of like in between, like just watching different worlds, thinking like, where do I belong? Like, who are my people? Because the relationships that you had that were meaningful have just kind of fizzled out. And yeah, that is not a good position to be in. So I hope that's been helpful to someone. I hope that has encouraged you to reach out to someone you care about. And if it's been a while before, like, you know, since you've reached out to someone, please, I hope after this video you will be encouraged to pick up the phone and have a long, meaningful conversation with someone that you care about. All right, guys, that's all for me, and I'll see you in the next video.